The day my daughter told me I wasn't welcome in her new house, I realized I'd been unwanted long before she ever said it. I wasn't always the woman people see today. The quiet one, the tired one, the one who stands outside her own family like a stranger. No, life shaped me into this. For as long as I can remember, I carried our home on my back, 2 jobs in my 20s, 3 jobs in my 40s, and more nights than I can count where I came home, too exhausted to talk, but still managed to cook, clean, and make sure my daughter had everything she needed. Diana, my only child, my heartbeat and heartbreak wrapped into one person. Her father, Henry, was everything she adored. Confident, wealthy, charming in the ways men can be charming when they don't have to struggle, and for reasons I still don't fully understand. He never saw me the way he saw her. When Diana was little, she'd climb into his lap with her tiny hands wrapped around his tie, giggling. He always looked at her like she was the sun. But when he looked at me, it was like he saw the shadow behind it. One time, she must have been 10, I brought home warm cinnamon rolls from the diner after a 14-hour shift. I'd saved tips all week just to surprise her. But when she walked through the door, she didn't even look at me. "Daddy, I got an A." She shoved the test into his hands. He lit up. I faded into the wallpaper. I stood there holding that warm box, steam rising into my face, wondering why the things I did never seemed to matter. And to this day, I still don't know if I should have walked over and joined them or walked away and spared myself the hurt. As she grew older, her words sharpened, her eyes hardened, and I started to feel like the more I gave, the less of me she wanted. I remember the first time she snapped at me, really snapped. She was 17, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. The sink was full. I had just finished a double shift. "Honey, can you help me with the dishes?" I asked gently. She didn't even look up. "Why do you always act like you do everything around here?" Then, under her breath, "Dad does everything. You just complain." That one cut deeper than anything Henry ever said. And sometimes, even now, at my age, I still wonder, was I too strict, too soft, too tired, or was I just the easiest person for her to aim her frustration at? Then came Henry's illness. Hospitals, bills, late-night prayers. I thought struggle would bring me and Diana closer. Instead, it pushed us into opposite corners of the room. Her protecting him, me being the one she blamed for every little thing that went wrong. After he passed, I thought grief might soften her. Death has a way of doing that to people. But the distance only grew. At the funeral, when I tried to put my hand on her shoulder, she shrugged me off like my touch was too heavy. Later that night, she slammed her bedroom door and told me, "Don't make this about you, Mom." I wasn't. I never had. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe that's why she never learned I had feelings, too. And sometimes, alone in my small living room, I still ask myself whether everything would have been different if I'd spoken up sooner, or if this ending was waiting for us all along. For months after Henry's death, I tried. Sunday dinners, little notes, voicemails wishing her good morning. But the replies were always short, cold, distant, until that one afternoon she burst through my door. Bright smile, new clothes, a confidence I hadn't seen since high school. "Mom, I bought a new house." Her excitement lit up the whole room. And for the first time in years, I felt something warm in my chest, a flicker of hope, a new house, a fresh start. Maybe, just maybe, this was the moment we'd become a family again. If only I had known, if only I had listened to the small voice inside me whispering, "How did she afford a house this fast? Is everything really as perfect as she says?" But I ignored it, Because mothers do that. We silence our instincts if it means one more chance to be loved. Looking back now, I wonder, was that my biggest mistake? Because the truth is, long before my daughter told me I wasn't welcome in her new house, I had already been standing outside her life for years. And the day she showed me that beautiful front porch, I didn't know the truth. Waiting on the other side of that door would tear our entire world apart. I still remember the heat that day, the kind of southern heat that sticks to your skin like a wet blanket. I was folding towels when my phone buzzed, and Diana's name lit up the screen. "Mom, can you come outside? I want to show you something." Her voice sounded bright, lighter than it had in months. And foolish as I am when it comes to her, my heart rose before my feet even touched the porch. She was standing next to a brand new white SUV with a giant red bow on it. A bow, like the kind you see in commercials, not real life. "Do you like it?" she asked, swinging the keys between her fingers. I blinked. "Honey, that's a beautiful car. How?" "Oh, Mom," she laughed. "Don't look at me like that. I got a great deal. A great deal. Cars like that don't come with great deals." But I didn't want to kill the moment, and a small voice inside me whispered, "How did she afford this?" Was I the only one wondering? Before I could ask, she grabbed my hand. "Come on, follow me." We drove just 10 minutes away, but it felt like we were crossing state lines. Every house got bigger. Greener lawns, fresh paint, family-sized porches built for Christmas decorations and Sunday iced tea. And then she slowed the car and hit the remote. A garage opened. A wide, shiny, 2-story brick home with white trim appeared in front of us. "Mom," Diana said, turning to me, "welcome to my dream house." I didn't breathe for a moment. This house wasn't just beautiful, it was expensive. Too expensive. I swallowed hard. "Diana, it's lovely, really lovely." She grinned, flipping her hair like she had just won a prize. "Dad would have loved it," she said softly. Of course she brought him up. She always does. But I forced a smile. "He would have been proud of you." Then, gently, carefully, I asked, "Can I see the inside?" What happened next is something I still replay in my mind, wondering if I misheard it, or if my heart was too fragile to process it correctly. Her face froze. A flicker, quick, sharp, then a smile too wide. The house is kind of messy right now." "I don't mind messy," I said. "Sweetheart, I just want to see where you live." She took a tiny step back. "Mom, stop. Just not today, okay?" I blinked. "Why not?" She exhaled loudly, annoyed. "This house isn't really for people like you. I need peace, not drama. For people like me, people like me." The words didn't just land. They bruised. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. And for one painful second, I wondered, was I overreacting? Or was my daughter truly pushing me out of her life? She looked away, tapping her phone, a nervous habit she'd had since she was little. "Please, Mom, just be happy for me, okay? Don't make everything emotional." Emotional, drama, people like me. Words she would never dare say to Henry. I forced myself to nod. "Okay, I'm happy for you." Before she could answer, a neighbor walked past, a slim white woman in yoga pants with a golden retriever. "Congrats on the new house, Diana," she called out. Diana lit up again, bright, warm, glowing, a smile she hadn't given me in years. When the woman left, Diana said quickly, "Mom, I have someone coming over soon, so I really need you to go. Someone. Over soon." But her eyes told a different story. Nervous, darting, hiding. I stepped backward, holding my purse strap for balance. "All right," I whispered. "I'll head home." But as I walked to my old car, I felt something unsettling, like the wind shifted, like the air around that perfect house carried a secret I wasn't meant to see. When I started the engine, I glanced back. She wasn't watching me leave. She was pacing the driveway, talking on the phone, her voice sharp. I cracked my window just enough to hear, "I told you I'd get the money. Just give me more time." My stomach dropped. Money? Time? Who was she talking to? And why did she sound scared? The garage door closed behind her, like a vault ceiling shut. I drove away slowly, headlights washing over houses, too perfect to be real. And I kept replaying her words. "This house isn't for people like you." By the time I turned down my street, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows across my small yard. Just as I stepped out, a voice called, "Are you Diana's mom?" I turned. It was the same neighbor from before, the yoga pants woman with the golden retriever. "Yes," I answered, trying not to sound uncertain. She hesitated, then stepped closer. "She moved in fast," the woman murmured. "A bit too fast, if you ask me. Too fast." Again those words. And suddenly, a cold chill crawled up my spine. If a stranger could sense something was off, why hadn't I seen it sooner? The neighbor gave a polite nod and walked away, leaving me standing in my driveway with a tightening knot in my chest. A knot I knew too well. A mother's warning. A mother's instinct. But it was more than instinct. It was fear. Fear that my daughter was slipping into something dangerous. Fear that she was hiding something darker than hurt feelings or grief. Fear that this beautiful new house was built on a secret big enough to destroy her. I closed my car door, staring at the steering wheel, willing my hands to stop shaking. And I couldn't help but think, was she keeping me out of that house? Or was she trying to keep something in? I didn't know then, but I was about to, because the house she wouldn't let me enter was the house that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my daughter and about the man I married. A few days after Diana showed me the house I wasn't allowed to enter, life went on as if nothing had happened. Or at least, she acted like nothing had happened. Me? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Deeply wrong. And I still didn't know if it came from the house, the money, or from my own daughter's voice, trembling on that driveway. But the answer came sooner than I expected. It was a Thursday morning when my phone rang. I was in my small kitchen, pouring myself a cup of coffee, when I saw the caller ID. Attorney Frank Mulligan, Henry's longtime lawyer. My stomach tightened. I picked up the phone slowly. "Hello, Mrs. Lawson," he said in a low, careful tone. "I need to speak with you regarding Henry's estate. Are you available today?" I froze. I thought everything was already settled," I said. "That's why we need to talk," he replied. "There's been a recent filing. Something unexpected." A recent filing. Unexpected. My fingers squeezed the phone too tight. "What kind of filing?" I whispered. There was a pause, like he was choosing his words carefully. "It's best discussed in person." That sentence alone was enough to make my pulse race. When I arrived at Frank's office, his secretary gave me a sympathetic smile, the kind people give you when they know something you don't. Frank stood up from his desk, shook my hand, and motioned for me to sit. "Mrs. Lawson, did Diana tell you anything about a property transfer done last month?" My heart dropped. "No," I answered slowly. "What property transfer?" He slid a stack of documents toward me. I scanned the first page, and there it was. Transfer of ownership, Lawson residence, primary home. Signed, not by Henry, but by Diana. My breath caught. She transferred Henry's house into her name? Frank nodded solemnly. 1 month before her father passed. And she presented a signature claiming it was Henry's consent. I felt the room tilt. Henry's signature was neat, elegant. The one on the page was almost right, but not right enough. My voice shook. "Is this legal?" "That's the issue," Frank said. "We're investigating whether the signature was forged." A chill spread from my neck. down to my spine. My daughter, my own daughter, forging her father's signature? I shook my head, as if that would make the truth rearrange itself into something easier to swallow. Frank leaned forward. There's more. He pulled out another document, a bank notice, stamped red. Final warning. This account, he explained, was emptied rapidly. Withdrawals traced back to Diana. I closed my eyes, not because I couldn't look, but because if I looked any longer, I might finally admit what I didn't want to believe. Frank hesitated, then added, Mrs. Lawson, Henry was aware of some of Diana's financial issues, but he didn't want you to worry. That sentence hurt more than the documents. Not because Henry kept things from me. I was used to that. But because it meant Diana had been spiraling while I was still begging her to return my calls. I swallowed hard. Why would she do this? Frank shook his head. I can't speak to motive. But I did call Diana before you arrived. She said not to tell you anything. A slow, deep hurt spread through me. Not anger, not shock, just hurt. My daughter didn't want me to know. She didn't want me involved. She didn't want me protected. She wanted me out. And a thought crossed my mind, one I didn't want to think, but couldn't avoid. Had she kept me out of the new house to keep me from discovering this? Frank folded his hands. We'll need both of you present to finalize the division of assets. Legally, you are still entitled to half of Henry's property. Half. The half Diana swore I wasn't getting. Suddenly her words in the driveway echoed in my head. This house isn't really for people like you. The puzzle pieces clicked into place, each one cutting me on the way down. She hadn't been protecting a boundary. She had been protecting a secret that could ruin her life, or had already started to. When I stepped out of the lawyer's office, the air felt different, thicker, heavier, like the truth had weight. And as I walked to my car, I couldn't help but whisper, did I fail her somehow? Or did she choose this path all on her own? The sun was high in the sky, but everything felt cold. Cold, like the moment when innocence finally ends. Cold, like the moment a mother realizes her child has crossed a line she can't pull them back from. I sat in the driver's seat for several minutes before starting the car, gripping the steering wheel to steady the shaking in my hands. Diana wasn't just hiding messy rooms or unpacked boxes. She was hiding forged signatures, empty accounts, a house she didn't want me to see, and people she was promising money to. And the worst part? I wasn't sure whether Diana was the victim in all this, or the cause. As I drove home, one thought repeated in my mind like a heartbeat. Whatever she'd gotten herself into, I was already too late to stop it. Frank Mulligan's office stayed with me long after I left it. The documents, the forged signature, the drained accounts, the recent filing, and the way he said Diana told him not to inform me. Those things ran laps in my mind for 2 nights straight. By the 3rd morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I needed to see that house, and I needed to look my daughter in the eye. Not as a mother hoping for love, but as the only person left who understood just how deeply Henry had trusted her. So when Frank called again and said he needed both of us to gather a few documents related to Henry's property, I agreed immediately. Can you get them? He asked. I'm on my way, I said. I didn't tell Diana I was coming. Part of me hoped she'd be surprised. Part of me feared she'd be angry. And part of me, the biggest part, feared what I would find. When I pulled up to the house, the sky was dull, overcast. A flat gray kind of day that made everything feel heavier. Her new car was in the driveway, so she was home. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I waited. Rang again. Still nothing, but I heard footsteps inside. Hesitant, slow. And after a long pause, the door finally cracked open. Diana's face appeared in the small opening. Her hair messy, eyes tired. Mom, what are you doing here? We need some documents for the lawyer, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He says they should be here. She swallowed hard. What documents? Property records, bank papers, anything related to your dad's estate. Her eyes flicked downward for a second. That same nervous flick she had when she lied as a child. Then she opened the door wider. Fine, she muttered, but make it quick. I stepped inside, and immediately, something felt wrong. Very wrong. The house Diana bragged about. The house she said wasn't for people like me. Didn't look like a dream house at all. It looked like a scramble, a panic. Boxes half opened, trash bags half tied. Paperwork spilled across the coffee table like someone had dumped them out and walked away. There was a smell too. Not dirty, just stale. Like stress. This is temporary, Diana said sharply, sweeping a pile of mail off a chair. I've been busy. I nodded, pretending to believe her, pretending to ignore the red flags screaming in my mind. Where are Dad's files? I asked. In the office, she answered, except when she walked me down the hallway and reached the office door. She froze. The door was locked. She pulled the knob again, harder, but the lock didn't budge. That's odd, she whispered, but the whisper wasn't surprised or confused. It was afraid. She fumbled with her keyring, hands shaking slightly, and unlocked it. The moment the door swung open, Diana stepped in front of me as if to block my view. Mom, just wait, okay? But it was too late. I had already seen inside. Papers everywhere. Stacks of envelopes, loans notices, bank letters, folders with Henry's name scrawled across the tabs. Some neatly, some sloppily, as if copied in a rush. And on the far desk, half buried under other documents, I saw something that made my heart stop. A checkbook with Henry's name and pen marks. Thick, overwriting strokes where someone had practiced his signature. I felt my breath catch. Diana, I whispered, what is all this? She didn't answer. She stepped forward, grabbed the checkbook, and shoved it into a drawer. It's nothing. Don't start. Don't start, I repeated. Your father hasn't even been gone a year. And this looks like... I said it's nothing, she snapped. But her voice broke at the end, fragile like glass right before it shatters. I moved past her, scanning the room again. Bills overdue, loan statements, mortgage paperwork, and at the center of her desk, a thick manila folder labeled Second Mortgage, Lawson Estate. My stomach twisted. Diana, tell me you didn't do this. She closed her eyes. Mom, just stop. Tell me, I repeated. She didn't turn around. Her shoulders shook once. Not from anger, but from fear. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she whispered. I needed help. I thought the investment would work. I thought I'd pay everything back before anyone noticed. Investment, loans, forged signatures, second mortgage. The room suddenly felt colder. I sank into a chair, the weight of her confession pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. When did this start? I asked quietly. She scrubbed at her face. Months ago. Before Dad. Before everything. And you used his name, I said. His credit. His reputation. His home. A beat of silence. Then, barely audible, I didn't know what else to do. The saddest part? She wasn't lying. I knew that trembling in her voice. That breaking point tone. That was real. But the truth could be real. And still be unforgivable. I looked around the room again. The stacks of debts, the forged forms, the mess she'd built with her own hands. And for the first time, I understood why she didn't want me in the house. Why she pushed me away. Why she shut the door that day and told me it wasn't for people like me. This house wasn't her dream. It was her downfall. And she didn't want me to see her falling. She didn't want anyone to. She finally whispered, Mom, please don't hate me. I closed my eyes. I don't hate you. I said softly. "But I am afraid for you. And I'm afraid of what your father left behind. Because I don't think he told me everything." Diana stiffened, and in that silent moment, standing in her chaotic office, I felt it. Something bigger was still hidden. Something she hadn't told me yet. Something Henry had taken to his grave. And it was waiting for me. At the lawyer's next meeting, I sat there in Diana's office, surrounded by the debris of her decisions, trying to breathe through the shock of everything I'd just seen. But the room felt small. Smaller than a house that size should ever feel. Papers covered every surface, bills, warnings, loan statements, and so many envelopes with Henry's name that it almost felt like he was still living here, haunting the place. I reached toward the stack in front of me, hands trembling, not quite ready, but unable to stop myself. The first folder held bank withdrawal slips, large amounts, taken out fast, over just a few weeks. No notation, no explanation, just money bleeding out like a wound. The next pile was worse. Contracts, loan applications, documents that required signatures. Some had Henry's name, some had Diana's, some had both. And that was when I noticed it. A page with 2 signatures side by side, one from years ago, one recent. Henry's real signature was elegant, confident. He always looped the H, like it was a flourish on a painting. The recent one, the one on the loan form, looked almost right, but not quite. The angle was too stiff, the loops too tight, the strokes too hesitant. My breath caught. "Diana," I whispered, "did you sign this?" She closed her eyes. "Mom, please don't." "Did you sign your father's name?" Her silence was answer enough. I let the paper fall to the desk. "You could go to prison for this," I said, my voice barely steady. "I didn't have a choice," she whispered. "There is always a choice," I replied quietly. "You just didn't choose me, or the truth." She flinched, a small, wounded motion, but she didn't deny it. I reached for another stack, trying to steady my breathing, but the next set of documents only twisted the knife deeper. On Henry's old house. The house he told me was paid off years ago. The house he promised would be my security when he was gone. The house she had transferred into her own name. My fingers shook as I flipped through the pages. The debt was massive, far more than I imagined, enough to sink anyone. What did you do?" I whispered. Diana sank into the desk chair, her face buried in her hands. "I thought it would work," she said. "It was supposed to be a safe investment. Guaranteed returns. Everyone said so." "Everyone?" I repeated. "Who is everyone?" She shook her head. "A man I met through a friend. He said he could double the money in 6 months. I just had to move quickly. I didn't want to lose the opportunity." Her voice cracked. "So I used Dad's info. Just temporary. Just until the returns came. I thought I'd put everything back before he even noticed. Before you noticed." "But he did notice," I said. She froze. Silence filled the room. Thick, suffocating. And in that silence, I felt the truth settle like dust on my skin. Henry knew. Maybe not everything, but something. And he didn't tell me. I pulled open a different drawer, one Diana hadn't touched yet. Inside, neatly organized, not like the rest of the chaos, were envelopes with Henry's handwriting on them. Some were unopened, some were torn, some were marked urgent. I opened the top envelope, hands trembling. Inside was a letter from the bank. "Your account shows unusual activity. We advise speaking with your daughter, Diana Lawson, regarding multiple withdrawals." My chest tightened. A second letter. "Your mortgage payment is overdue. Immediate response required." A third. "Notice. Attempted additional loan in your name denied due to inconsistencies in signature." I covered my mouth, trying to keep myself from crying out. Henry wasn't sick only from illness. He was sick from stress, from secrets, from protecting someone who didn't protect him in return. My voice wavered. He tried to stop you. Diana wiped her face. He told me to stop. I know, but I already owed too much. If the investment worked, it would have fixed everything. I just needed time. And when it didn't work? I asked. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. Everything collapsed. The guy disappeared. And Dad? He said he would fix it. He said I was young. He didn't want me to ruin my life. So he took the blame, I whispered. For you. For your debts. For the lies. Diana covered her mouth to muffle a sob. He said he'd handle it so you wouldn't worry. He didn't want you to know. That was the moment my spine went cold. He hadn't just been hiding her mistakes. He was dying carrying them. My hands pressed against the desk to keep from collapsing. How could you let him take that on? I whispered, more to myself than to her. I didn't mean, Mom, I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she cried. But intentions didn't matter. Not anymore. I picked up the manila folder labeled Mortgage, Second Loan, and inside was one final page. One that punched the air from my lungs. A handwritten note in Henry's handwriting. For Marion, if anything happens, please forgive her. She didn't understand what she was doing. I'm trying to fix it before it's too late. My knees nearly gave out. He had been trying to shield her, trying to save her, and he never told me. Because he thought I couldn't handle it. Because he thought I wasn't strong enough. Because even in the end, he trusted her more than me. The realization broke something inside me. Not anger, not betrayal. Something more fragile. A quiet devastation. I looked at Diana, her face blotchy from crying, her hands trembling in her lap. She looked so small, so lost, but also responsible. My God, Diana, I said softly. You didn't just take his money. You took his peace. You took his last months. She sobbed harder. Mom, please, please don't leave me. But I didn't move. I couldn't. I wasn't sure if I was strong enough to stand beside her, or if I was finally about to break. And deep inside, beneath all the wreckage, a new fear was rising. If this was only what she kept in the house, what truth was waiting at the lawyer's office? The truth Henry left behind. The truth he couldn't speak. The truth he sealed in writing before he died. A truth I wasn't ready for, but it was coming, and it would change everything. 2 days after confronting Diana in her office, my phone rang again. It was Frank Mulligan, Henry's lawyer. His tone was steady, but there was something underneath it. Something too calm to be comforting. Mrs. Lawson, he said, it's time. The document Henry left. It needs to be read. Both you and Diana must be present. For a moment, I couldn't speak. A document, a sealed instruction. For both of us. Henry had kept many things from me. But whatever was inside that envelope felt like the final weight of everything he carried before he died. I'll be there, I finally said. But inside, I wasn't ready at all. When the day came, the sky felt too bright for what waited inside that office. Diana was already sitting in the hallway when I arrived, staring at the floor. Her eyes were red, her hands twisting in her lap. She looked young again, young in the way people look when they're afraid. Are you ready? I asked quietly. She didn't look at me. I don't know. Neither did I. Frank opened the office door and guided us to our seats. On the desk sat a thick envelope with Henry's handwriting on it. My chest tightened at the sight of his looping letters, to be opened only in the presence of my wife, Marion, and my daughter, Diana. Frank took a deep breath. What is written in here is legally binding and emotionally significant. This is Henry's final instruction regarding his estate and his final words to both of you. Diana folded her hands tightly. Just read it. Frank opened the envelope slowly and unfolded the letter. When he began reading, Henry's voice filled the room even though he was gone. My dearest Marion, and my beloved daughter, Diana, if you are hearing this, it means I am gone, and it means the truth can no longer stay buried. I felt my breath hitch. Marion, I have kept things from you, not because you are weak, but because I was. The words cut deeper than I was prepared for. Diana made mistakes, terrible mistakes, ones that could have ruined her life forever, and I did not want her to face the consequences alone. Beside me, Diana stiffened. She covered her mouth with her trembling hand. She used my name. She took loans in my name. She forged my signature more than once. The air left the room. I could hear Diana gasping, trying not to fall apart, hearing it spoken by her father who had protected her until his last breath, was a wound sharper than anything I could have inflicted. I confronted her. I told her she had to stop, but I saw fear in her eyes, the same fear I once saw in myself when I was her age. I closed my eyes. Henry had seen the same darkness I had seen, but he faced it alone. She promised she would fix it, promised she would repay every cent, promised it would all go away. Silence, heavy, suffocating. But the debts grew, and my health weakened, and I could not let my daughter go to prison. I pressed my hand to my chest. That one sentence shattered me. The weight he carried, the choice he made. It was too much for one man. Marion, I did not tell you because I could not bear the thought of you losing faith in her. I could barely carry the truth myself. Tears blurred my vision. You spent your life holding this family together. I spent mine pretending I was the strength, when really, it was always you. My chin trembled. Those were the words I waited decades for. Yet hearing them now, when he was gone, felt like being handed a flower after the garden had already burned down. To my daughter Diana, I love you. That has never been in question, but love cannot erase responsibility. Diana let out a small, broken sob. You took something from me. Time, peace, health, but I cannot let you take from your mother what she deserves. She shook her head, tears falling between her fingers. I leave all remaining assets, property, and inheritance to Marion. The silence that followed wasn't silence at all. It was impact, shock, collapse. It was the ground splitting beneath my daughter's feet. I could hear her whispering, "No, no, no." But the letter wasn't finished. If you wish to earn back what you lost, Diana, then you must show her, not me, that you can stand on your own feet. No more lies. No more debts and secrecy. No more taking the easy way out. Diana's sobbing grew harder. She wasn't just crying from guilt. She was crying from the truth finally catching up. Truth her father had held back with his own hands. You cost me more than money, but she deserves everything I never gave her. My heart cracked open. Pain, grief, anger, love. Everything collided all at once. Frank's voice softened as he reached the end. Marion, I failed you in ways I did not understand until the end. This is the only way I know how to give you back what was always yours. And then the final line, the line that pierced the deepest. Forgive her if you can, but protect yourself if you cannot. Frank folded the letter and set it down. Diana buried her face in her hands. Mom, I didn't know I didn't know. I looked at her, really looked at her. Not as the child I once sheltered, not as the woman pretending to be strong, but as someone standing in the ruins she helped create. I stood up slowly. Let's go home, I said. But the word home sounded different now. It wasn't her house, not the house built on lies and forged signatures, not the house Henry died trying to hold together. Home was where the truth had finally landed. Home was where the consequences were waiting. And I knew the hardest part was still ahead of us. I didn't speak a word during the drive home from the lawyer's office. Neither did Diana. The road stretched out in front of us. Quiet, endless, heavy. It felt like we were floating through fog, suspended between a truth that had already crushed us and a future neither of us knew how to face. Diana kept her hands pressed against her mouth, as if holding in everything she was afraid to say. I kept mine on the steering wheel, gripping it so tightly my fingers ached. When we reached my house, she didn't get out right away. She just leaned her forehead against the window and whispered, "Mom, please don't hate me." I didn't answer, not because I hated her, but because I didn't know what I felt anymore. She stepped out slowly and walked toward the porch. I remained by the car, staring at the ground, trying to breathe through a storm of pain I didn't yet understand. When I finally lifted my head, I saw him, Orion Sage, standing beneath the oak tree across the yard, hands tucked into the pockets of his long coat, the late afternoon light cutting around him like a soft outline. He wasn't someone you noticed with your eyes first. You noticed him with your chest, a quiet shift inside you, like someone had turned down the world's volume so your heart could finally speak. I didn't call out to him. I didn't walk toward him. I simply stood where I was, and he did the same, as if he had been waiting for the moment the truth finally broke me open. After a long silence, he spoke. His voice was low, warm, steady, the kind of voice that could hold your grief without trying to fix it. "You finally saw what he carried," he said. I swallowed hard. "Yes." "And what she carried," he added gently. I closed my eyes. What she carried became his burden. "Pain often becomes someone else's burden," Orion Sage replied. "It rarely stays where it begins." I felt tears rising again, but this time they weren't violent. They were slow, quiet, like grief settling instead of striking. "I don't know what to do," I confessed. "It feels like everything I thought I knew broke today." Orion Sage nodded once, as if agreeing not to the pain, but to the truth of it. "When truth arrives," he said softly, "it doesn't come to destroy you, even when it hurts. It comes to free the parts of you that were living in the dark." I let the words settle. "They both lied to me," I whispered. "Yes," he said, "and they hid things from you because they believed you were someone who would break if you knew." He stepped closer, but only by a few feet, respecting the space between pain and healing. "They forgot," he continued, "that you are the one who held the entire family together. You are not fragile. You are simply tired." My lip trembled. It had been a long time since anyone acknowledged the weight I carried. "I'm angry at Henry," I confessed, "for protecting her more than he protected us, for leaving me with this mess." Orion Sage tilted his head. "Anger is honest. It tells you where the wound is." "And I'm angry at her," I whispered, "for letting him do it, for letting him die carrying her mistakes." He nodded again, but beneath the anger, he said quietly, "There is something else." I waited. "Grief," he said, "and fear. Fear that if you stop carrying her, she will fall." A tear slipped down my cheek. "I'm afraid of losing her." Orion Sage's gaze softened. "You didn't lose her today," he said. "You just finally saw her clearly." He looked toward the house where Diana was sitting, alone in my living room, head bowed. "She is standing at a crossroads," he said. "But so are you." My voice barely came out. "What am I supposed to do?" Orion Sage took a slow breath. "I cannot tell you," he said. "A mother's choice must be made by her own heart." I looked at him, really looked at him, searching his face for something certain, something solid I could hold on to. But all he offered was truth, not direction, not a command, only truth. "Forgiveness," he said, "is not a door you open for someone else. It's a path you walk for yourself." I let that sink in. "And responsibility?" I asked. "That," he said, "is a weight your daughter must learn to carry. You cannot lift it for her anymore. The wind rustled the leaves above us, and the late sunlight flickered across the grass. Orion Sage's voice grew almost a whisper. Love without boundaries becomes sacrifice. Boundaries without love become punishment. You must find the place between the two and stand there. My throat tightened. What if I stand there alone? I asked. He gave a small, gentle smile. Then you will finally know your own strength. We stood together in silence, breathing in the heavy truth, the painful truth, the truth that had taken too long to surface. Then he stepped back. As of today, he said quietly, nothing is decided. Not for her, and not for you. He began to turn away. But what happens next, he added, will depend on the choice you make when you're ready. And with that, he walked down the quiet street, leaving me under the old oak tree, hurt, but not broken, lost, but no longer blind. I looked toward the house. Diana was sitting alone, waiting, not for forgiveness, not for punishment, just waiting, because for the first time, she didn't know if her mother would choose to stay or finally step away. And I realized, for the first time in my life, the choice was finally mine. The next morning, the house felt strangely quiet, not peaceful, just quiet in the way a storm makes the air still before it breaks. I barely slept. I kept hearing Henry's voice from the letter, kept seeing Diana's face collapsing under the weight of her choices, kept feeling Orion Sage's words settle inside me like shifting stones. When I walked into the living room, Diana was sitting on the couch, knees pulled to her chest. She had been crying. I could tell. Her eyes were swollen, her hands clasped so tightly the knuckles were white. "Mom, can we talk?" she whispered. I sat down across from her, leaving space between us. Not distance, just space. The kind Orion Sage told me I needed. She wiped her face and took a shaky breath. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I said nothing. I just wanted to impress Dad, she continued, to show him I could build something, to make him proud. Her voice cracked. And then, when everything started going wrong, I panicked. I kept thinking, if I could fix it fast enough, no one would have to know. I looked down at my hands, hands that had worked all my life, hands that had cleaned, cooked, held, comforted, hands that had steadied other people while no one ever steadied me. "Diana," I said quietly, "you didn't just hide the truth. You made choices that hurt your father deeply. Maybe more than you ever understood." She nodded slowly, eyes filling again. I know. I waited, let her feel the weight of what she said. Finally, she whispered, "Mom, I'm scared." This time, her voice wasn't defensive or angry. It wasn't blaming me, or dismissing me, or running from me. It was small, real, human. "What are you scared of?" I asked. She hesitated. "That you won't help me." The words landed heavy. That was the moment I realized. Even after the truth, even after the letter, even after everything, she still expected me to carry her. "Help you with what?" I asked, though I already knew. She took a long, trembling breath. "The inheritance," she said softly. "Dad left everything to you, but you don't need all of it. I need it, Mom. I need it to pay the loans, to fix things. If you take everything, I'll drown." There it was, the request beneath everything else, the fear beneath the apology. "Give it to me," she whispered. "Please." I leaned back slowly, not in shock, not in anger, but in clarity. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for rescue. "Diana," I said gently, "your father made his decision. It wasn't about punishing you. It was about protecting me." "I know," she cried. "I know that. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But if you take everything, I won't survive this." Her voice broke open in the middle, raw, desperate, terrified. I closed my eyes for a moment. I saw Henry, in his final months, carrying burdens he never shared. I saw the documents, the forged signatures, the debt swallowing everything. I saw myself, working 3 jobs, always the one holding the house together, while no one thought to hold me. And I saw Diana, my daughter, standing at the edge of a cliff she carved with her own hands. When I opened my eyes, she was staring at me, pleading, trembling, waiting. I spoke softly, but with a steadiness I hadn't known I possessed until now. "No, Diana." She blinked. "What?" "I'm not taking responsibility for your choices," I said. "Your father paid for your mistakes with his health, and eventually with his peace. I cannot pay for them with the rest of my life." She shook her head in disbelief. "You're abandoning me." "I'm finally stepping out of the role you forced me into," I replied. "I loved you through every mistake. I stood beside you even when you couldn't see me. But I will not let you use my love to avoid your own consequences." Her mouth opened, trembling, but no words came out. I stood up. She stood too, instinctively, like she thought she could stop me with her presence alone. "Mom, please," she whispered. I touched her arm gently. "I'm here," I said, "but I'm not carrying this for you." Her face folded in on itself. Her breath stuttered. She sank back onto the couch like her legs could no longer hold her. "Mom, what do you want me to do?" "I want you to stand," I said softly, "on your own feet, for the first time." Tears slid down her face. "I don't know how." I exhaled, a trembling, aching breath. "That," I murmured, "is why your father wrote that letter. Not to punish you, to help you begin." I walked toward the door. Each step felt heavy, but not uncertain. Not anymore. When I reached the doorway, I looked back. Diana was sitting in the middle of her beautiful, haunted house. The house she had built on debt and denial. The house she had tried to keep me out of. The house she thought made her powerful, but had made her fragile instead. Her shoulders shook as she whispered into her hands, and I realized something I had never allowed myself to feel. I could love her deeply, and still walk away from the wreckage she created. I stepped outside. The air was crisp, quieter, almost clean. As I closed the door behind me, I understood something Orion Sage had tried to tell me. Some doors you don't close to shut love out. You close them to stop losing yourself. And for the first time in my life, I walked away not because I was weak, but because I was finally strong enough. I don't remember the walk back to my car, only the sound of my own footsteps, steady, slow, unfamiliar in their strength. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking away from my daughter in anger or hurt or disappointment. I was walking away because the truth had finally made space for me to stand on my own feet. When I reached the end of the driveway, I stopped and looked back at the house. Her house. The house she said wasn't for people like me. The house built with loans, forged signatures, and a silence that nearly buried us all. A light flickered behind the living room curtain. Diana was still inside, sitting exactly where I had left her. Small, shaking, lost. A part of me wanted to run back in, hold her, fix her, tell her it would all be okay. That part of me has lived inside my chest for decades. But another part, the part Orion Sage spoke to, finally whispered, "She has to walk through this part alone." I stood there for a long moment, letting myself feel everything I had avoided for years. The betrayal, the exhaustion, the grief for Henry, the grief for the family we pretended to be, and underneath all of it, a quiet, trembling hope that maybe this was where change could begin. Not in forgiveness, not in punishment, but in truth. As the wind moved through the trees, I remembered Orion Sage's words. Love without boundaries becomes sacrifice. Boundaries without love become punishment. You must find the place between the two. And stand there, I whispered into the cold air. I don't know if I'm standing in the right place, but this is the only place I can stand today. I drove home in silence. No music, no thoughts loud enough to drown anything out. Just the weight of everything that had led us here, resting in the passenger seat like an uninvited ghost. When I reached my house, I sat in the car for a moment, staring at my own front door, my own porch, my own space, the one place left untouched by lies and signatures and debts. I stepped out and walked to the porch slowly. The wood creaked beneath my feet, familiar and forgiving. Inside, the house smelled like coffee and old books. The life I had built, the life I had earned, the life Henry had finally returned to me in his last words. I sat down at the kitchen table and unfolded his letter again. My hands shook, but I read it from beginning to end, letting every word settle where it needed to settle. When I reached the last line, forgive her if you can, but protect yourself if you cannot. I closed my eyes. I don't know if I can forgive her, I whispered. I don't know if I can't. And the truth was, I wasn't supposed to know. Not yet. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It isn't a door you open because someone is scared or sorry. It isn't a prize you hand out because you're tired of fighting. Forgiveness is a journey, and I was only taking my first step. I looked at the empty chair across from me and imagined Henry sitting there, hands folded, eyes soft, in a way they rarely were when he was alive. Why didn't you tell me? I asked the air. Why did you carry it alone? No answer came, of course, but something shifted inside me. A realization that maybe he wasn't protecting Diana as much as he was trying, clumsily, painfully, to protect all three of us from the truth. I leaned back in the chair and wiped at my eyes. I wish we had talked, I whispered. I wish you had trusted me. I wish. So many things. Outside, the sky was beginning to dim. The day was ending, but something told me this wasn't an ending at all. It was a beginning, messy, uncertain, unfinished. And maybe that was okay. I stood and walked to the front door, opening it to let the evening air in. The world felt colder, but clearer. I looked toward the street, toward the direction of Diana's house, and said softly, if she chooses truth over lies, if she chooses to stand instead of collapse, my door will be open for her. I let out a shaky breath. But not today. Not because I didn't love her, but because I finally loved myself enough to stop breaking for someone who wasn't willing to bend. I rested my hand on the doorframe and whispered into the fading light. I still don't know if I made the right choice. I don't know if walking away today will save us or end us. I swallowed, fighting the ache in my chest. If you were in my place, what would you have done? The house was quiet, and for the first time in my life, the quiet didn't scare me. It felt honest. It felt earned. It felt like the beginning of something I had never given myself permission to feel. Peace.